We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going. What you want to be going, you see.
All ideas.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100. Put a quarter in it, printed out $100. Would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
Really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Good evening. Imagine if you had, over the next 18 months, crushed $30,000 in debt. Well, that's what Evelyn did, but we did even better. She went on to her plan is to crush $130,000 in 48 months.
Yeah, pretty powerful.
Crazy, right?
Pretty
It
powerful.
is pretty powerful. And she was able to go from a place where she was struggling to take action. She was confused. She did not have the confidence in executing something like a strategy like this until she was on 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minute call.
Yeah.
That was all it took to take her from all the years of accumulating and dealing and battling, carrying this debt, to having a plan of action and knowing exactly how to get it done. It's pretty powerful when you apply information and confidence, right? And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to walk you through how Evelyn, well, we changed the names, okay? So we're calling her Evelyn. How Evelyn walked through her plan on how to crush debt in these two stages. First, we're gonna take care of $30,000 worth of that debt in 18 months, and then show you how the rest will be executed as well. So if you're new here, we're the Stidhams. We teach you how to become financially free. We did it. So now we're pulling others along with us. So if you have not yet, please like and subscribe and come back. Jump in the chat and tell us where you're tuning in from. It's a vibe in there. It's like kind of like a family right here in our chat, and we appreciate all of you for tuning in. So if you're on your on your wealth building journey or your debt reduction journey, you're in the right place. All right, so getting started, should we just do a quick recap of what velocity banking is and why it is so powerful? This is some of the, and the reason why we kind of cover these recaps is because there's a lot of this stuff that, because there's a lot of information, it gets misinterpreted, and therefore people kind of miss the mark and don't feel as confident, right? So this is some of like the frequent mistakes that people make when starting their journey.
Well, so this kind of speaks to a lot of the conversations I've been having over the last few weeks, because, we kind of, it usually becomes a trend. And here's what I would say. With all these different people talking about velocity banking, in order to effectively do velocity banking, you do need a debt tool. So yes, we will recap and break down what does velocity banking mean and what are the stages and all of that kind of stuff. But what prompted today's, I'll call it live, is there's a lot of people who are picking up lines of credit, whether they are 0% credit cards or personal lines of credit or home equity lines of credit, whether first or second position. There's a lot of them. And I think what's happening is these people watch our videos, watch other people's videos, and they go, that sounds like something that I should have. And then they get it and they go, well, wait a minute. Am I making the right decision? Like, should I have gotten so much? Like, whoa, this interest rate. I wasn't expecting this interest rate. I mean, what do I do with? So there's a lot of, I'll call it questions around how to fully take advantage of this item, even if they've watched, they keep us on repeat. They watch us every morning, whatever they've been binge watching, whatever the case may be. They still want to have that meeting and go, I just need to hear you say it, Donnell. Like, am I doing this right? Because I want to make sure I'm not making any mistakes. So what I love about this example is, I'd say this is not a typical conversation that I have. Evelyn is absolutely retired and saw an opportunity to be able to leverage some of the acquire leverage to be able to assist on her retirement journey. So this was kind of fun for me. And you're right, it was a fairly short call, approximately 30 minutes, but I think we got to a pretty cool place in that 30-minute time frame.
Yeah, what's kind of wild is to know how long we can sit with debt, and we carry this debt, the burden, the anxiety, all of the what the impact that it does to our self-esteem, not really understanding how to execute on a plan to crush debt. We make it our goal, and then 10 years later we're going, yeah, well, after I crush debt, I'll build wealth. But seeing some of these strategies and seeing what some of these people have achieved, and when I say some of these people, I'm talking about over 100 people that have directly that we know that we've directly impacted, who are well on their way within the plans that they created
Right.
within that 30 minutes. And to know that you're 30 minutes away from being able to execute on something and achieve results that is almost unheard of in a completely legal way, right? And without making any more money. Most of these people have not added any extra income yet. To be able to achieve these results, it makes you wonder why more people aren't talking about it, right? So what aren't they talking about, and why do we double down on this? Let's find out.
So we're talking about velocity banking. And again, we're going to kind of dig into some details, but first let's just step back and just remember, what is velocity banking again? Again, velocity banking is simply a strategy. It's a strategy that's designed to help free up cash flow. Like, you may already be you have decent income, may already be paying your bills logically, like we all do. But where does that cash flow live today? In most cases, it sits in your checking account. In most cases, it maybe it's sitting in a savings account, making you 0.01%. But the idea behind velocity banking is it's simply a strategy to help eliminate and or reduce debt. I am not a fan of becoming debt free. That is not our goal. Now, we may achieve it, we may get there, but the objective is to be able to leverage tools to be able to continue to generate wealth. So, how do you do that if you're riddled in debt? You have to reduce the amount of debt that you have so that you can put yourself in a better position to be able to use leverage. So, it's all about a strategy to reduce and or eliminate debt. Some of the benefits of that is obviously paying off debt faster. The idea behind this is getting multiple uses out of a dollar so that you can not only address debt, but also reduce the balance on your debt tool. So in essence, we are using a dollar more than one time. And I get into a lot of back and forths in the comments around how whether or not it's even a logical statement to make that you can get multiple uses out of the same dollar. But I prove it every time because it is true. You can absolutely drive your income through a vehicle, then pay debts from that vehicle, and recapture your cash flow on that debt tool. Um, Increase cash flow, strengthen your credit. I think there's secondary benefits as well, right? It's not only when you're eliminating and or reducing debt, what is the message you're sending to your creditors? What is the message you're sending to the companies that hold your credit score in such high regard? What you're saying to them is, hey, I understand how to use these vehicles. And in the process, you may see your credit score increase. But you know what? When you're going through this process, you also may see it negatively impacted. And here's how I view credit worthiness. To me, when you need it to be high, you take the proper action so that you can, reduce DTI and do those things so that it can be high. But when you're going through velocity banking, to me, use it as a tool. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. You may get a debt tool and acquire more debt, which means the balance becomes higher, which means your debt to income ratio is impacted. But as you do velocity banking and those changes happen, or those balances get reduced, or those debts get chunked away and paid off, then your credit score improves. And my take on it is this: if you're sitting with an 800 credit score and it's consistently at 800 credit score? What are you doing with it? How are you leveraging it? How are you using it? If you're not, you're sitting there with an 800 credit score, but that credit score isn't helping you become any more wealthy. So, how do you leverage the position you're in to maybe pick up a debt tool so that you can do other things to focus on the true goal, legacy, wealth, being able to retire early, being able to have a comfortable retirement, whatever the case may be. So, and what do you need to be able to effectively do velocity banking? Well, you obviously need income because it's that income that's going to dictate how quickly you're able to pay some of this debt off. And you need a vehicle to drive that income through, some form of a debt tool. In addition, what are we paying off? We're paying off bills, expenses, assets. Like we're talking your normal expenses like utilities, cable, cell phone, stuff like that. But then you may have different debts out there associated with maybe your car note, mortgage, lines of credit, loans, student loans, SBA loans, you name it. The objective is to be able to address some of those things. And once all of that income goes in for the month and all of those normal bills and normal debts are paid off during that month, there's a certain dollar amount left over. That dollar amount that's left over, that is your cash flow. To me, velocity banking is only about these two items. It is not about this. And I know we focus a lot around paying off debts so that you can free up cash flow, but to me, velocity banking is solely about driving your cash flow through this vehicle. Because if you're able to do that, these things will take care of themselves. And I'll kind of show you today as we walk through this example. And so what does that structure, what does that process look like? What do I want to use? We'll go here. So ultimately income comes in and it normally goes into your checking account. And if you do nothing different, it sits on that checking account waiting to be used. But in velocity banking, we take that income and immediately put it on some form of a debt tool. I will get into the types of debt tools. But then what we're going to do is pay bills from that tool. And when we do that, what's left over at the end of the month, this cash flow ends up sitting right here on this debt tool. And what that does is there's two things that happens. One, when your income goes from here to here, all of that income satisfies the payment due on this debt tool. And then once you pay bills from that debt tool, this remaining cash flow then sits here, which means it drops the balance down. So when your income goes in, at this point, you're paying the least amount of interest possible on this item, on this tool, whatever it is, whatever that vehicle is. And then once you pay debt from it, yes, the balance goes back up. But because your cash flow is sitting on it, you're also at a lower balance than you would have been had your normal cash flow just been sitting in your checking account. So the question you have to answer is my cash flow sitting in my checking account? Is my cash flow sitting in my savings account better for me there than driving down the balance and reducing the amount of interest being paid here? And it's not for me to answer because in some cases, maybe it doesn't, in some cases, maybe a debt tool does not make sense for you. Maybe what you should be doing is just making sure you are debt snowballing or debt avalanching and addressing debt through your checking account. It just, everybody's different. But the key is kind of just understand if we're going to do velocity banking, if we're truly going to do velocity banking, it's
Oh, your mic. It's doing the thing again. Dang it. I don't know. Just try to unplug it. And I muted you, so I can't tell. You have to unmute. Sorry, guys. You know those tech gremlins coming in. Did you unmute over here in the program?
right now.
Okay, much better. I don't know what the deal is. We got to tape up your cord or something because I think it just gets wiggles or something.
There we go.
We good?
Can you hear me at all?
Yep, I can hear you now. Okay, what I was going to say is the the biggest question that comes out of this cycle and seeing this cycle is, well, what if I can't pay bills with my debt tool? And assuming that all the cash has to go on the debt tool. So can you hear me?
Let's see. about there?
Yes. You can't hear me?
Okay, for whatever reason, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
But at any rate, as long as you guys can hear me, but
Okay.
note now, I cannot hear you.
Okay, well, the answer is you don't have to put all that. It's the cash flow being on the debt tool that matters. So go ahead.
All right. So you want me to continue? All right. So this is hilarious. So as I was saying, bottom line is velocity banking is solely about the debt tool and the cash flow sitting on that debt tool going forward. So does this work? There are many examples that says that it does. We've got many examples of people that I've worked with personally that says that it does. This is a small, I'll call it list or small um, um, segment of the number of people who have reached out and said, you know what, I am shocked at how quickly I was able to eliminate debt. I am shocked at how quickly this debt tool that I was very hesitant in getting, that I really didn't understand how to fully use, that when I'm driving my income through it, it allowed me to be able to address this debt, not just timely, but efficiently. And I have full access to my cash flow, or full access to my leftover dollars whenever I want to be able to do other things. So again, it ultimately assists in being able to put you in a position to where you can achieve your goal whenever you like. So today, to get very, very specific, the idea, this is kind of the answer to the test before we even walk through the test. And that is, in 30 months, we were able to, or in 30 minutes, meaning in a 30-minute call, we were able to build out a plan that will address $130,000 in debt in approximately 48 months. Now, around on that call, we really focused on putting everything in place so that this $30,000 in debt could be eliminated as quickly as possible. And just so we're clear, let's kind of break down Evelyn a little bit. She is already retired, so the income that she has is pretty fixed. She's got, and I'll show you in the velocity banking worksheet what that breakdown looks like. But she's currently in retirement. Income is fixed. So the idea is, where can she free up? Where can she increase her cash flow so that she can live a bit more comfortably throughout retirement? And to kind of break down what this actually looks like is, first we're going to address this $3,000 in debt. She's got a mortgage that she's been paying on since 1984. 1980. She's been paying on this mortgage for 40 years, and it still has a balance of $99,000. So we're going to also address, so we're going to address the credit card debt. We're going to address this mortgage. And now, because we are using a line of credit to be able to do all of this, we also have to address the balance on the line of credit. But ultimately, when you add all that together, it ends up being $130,000 in debt in 48 months, in 4 years total. And again, the piece that kind of my jaw dropped a little bit, I'm trying to understand how she's been paying 40 years on this home, but it's actually a bit more logical than I was even allowing myself to understand. As we refinance every 5 to 7 years, what happens? The clock restarts. And we think we're refinancing because, hey, they've just waved this shiny object in front of us in relation to a interest rate. Hey, as interest rates drop, because again, 1984 to 2024, 1984 interest rates weren't very great, and over the years, interest rates improved. So she's refinanced several times. So this $99,000 balance that she has left on this home is year 20. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Okay, it's all right. I'll just make the point. The same thing happens when, not just when you're refinancing, but when you are constantly moving and buying a new home. It's the exact same thing. So even though you may have gained a little equity to have moved into a new house or to put a down payment on a new house, unless you are okay, can you hear me now? No. Okay. All right. Moving on. The same thing happens when we're refinancing or when we are buying a new house. And this is such a common thing where the majority of people, that think the average is people stay in their homes for 5 years. Imagine if at the 10-year mark or 15-year mark, you are moving again, like even when you're downsizing and you think to yourself, like, I'm putting a whole bunch of equity in, and now I'm moving into a new place, or downsizing into a new mortgage. It's the same thing. And this is why it makes it really, really difficult for people to pay off their mortgages. Okay.
And I assume because she left, I cannot continue. Heard none of that, by the way. Okay. So again, the idea behind this. So Evelyn, again, what I love so much about this example is it's a little bit different than what we traditionally talk about. Normally, I'm talking about someone who is focused on either firing their job or retiring early or putting themselves in a position so that when they hit retirement age, they're in a much better position. Where in this case, we are fully focused on how can we increase that cash flow today. And again, having a $99,000 mortgage balance and still having 20 years to pay on it, and I'm already in retirement, that's a heck of a weight to still be carrying while going into retirement. So I was excited to be able to assist with that challenge. And when we talk about velocity banking, this is how most people view and or address velocity banking. In most cases, its income goes into the normal checking account. Again, as I mentioned, we pay bills, and then that cash flow ends up sitting in that checking account, getting either used up by, I'll say, used up by just frivolous spending, or it's sitting there waiting to be nickeled and dimed away, or maybe we're putting extra on other bills, like paying extra on our mortgage, paying extra on that credit card as opposed to paying the minimum. And so what ends up happening is, yeah, our bills get addressed. And because we're paying extra on those bills, we see a little bit of movement. But then the following month, when that 27, 26, 24% interest rate kicks in, the balance goes right back up. And when the balance goes right back up, it looks like there was no movement, even though we put extra on these bills. And so the idea behind velocity banking is, let's approach this a little bit. Oh, and when using Evelyn as an example, when her normal income of 4862, and again, this 4862 is fairly fixed, goes into that checking account and it's paying those expenses, the debts, and also the mortgage that she owes. What ends up happening is this cash flow. And what I loved about this example as well is she's got decent cash flow. $1,500 in cash flow is not shabby. That cash flow would sit right here in this checking account, again, waiting to be spent. And some may say, well, if I've got $1,500 in cash flow, why do I need anything else to be able to address debt? And I would agree with you, meaning there's no reason why this $1,500 used effectively could still chunk away at debt. My challenge is, can we do it a bit more efficiently, though? I'm not saying it cannot be done. I'm not saying you need a debt tool to be able to do it. My challenge is, can I do it more effectively? Can I get it done in a shorter period of time and to allow you to be in a position to where you can generate even more income? Like, to me, that is the ultimate objective. And so what we're going to do with Evelyn is, again, income goes into a checking account. We're going to go into a debt tool. And in this case, that debt tool will be a second position HELOC. And so income goes in, and then we're going to pay bills, all bills from that line of credit. And then the cash flow ends up coming right back into that, or cash flow ends up sitting on that line of credit, allowing that line of credit to then sit at the lowest possible balance. So we're accruing the least amount of interest. And what about an emergency fund? If something comes up, like a roof needs to be fixed, or a car needs to be purchased, or a car needs to be fixed, we have the leverage available sitting on that HELOC to be able to use it. So you didn't lose your emergency fund. And also notice, I assume she has a fair amount of savings. We're not touching any of that either. So this is all. This is the bottom line is the system is designed to work within itself. And I've been talking a lot about debt tools. What do I mean? Well, there's many types. There's credit cards, personal lines of credit, home equity lines of credit, and in most cases, what we're talking about here is a second position home equity line of credit. But there's also first position home equity lines of credit. And so what are the others that we aren't talking about? Well, maybe you can use a business line of credit. Or, like I mentioned, a first position home equity line of credit. There's many types, and there's no wrong answer to which you use. And I also have this self-directed loan here. In truth, a loan cannot be used as a debt tool. Why? Because a debt tool is a vehicle that you can put income in and get it and come out of it. But a self-directed 401k loan, you can get money out of it, but you can't get, I'll call it, your income, your monthly pay into it. But the reason I put it there is it's another piece of leverage. It's leverage that you have control over, and it's leverage that if you were to dump it into your checking account and not having any debt tool at all, it can be leveraged and used to be able to generate and or eliminate debt. I'm sorry, generate wealth and or eliminate debt. And this is that self-directed 401k loan is exactly how we were able to initiate or get started with Velocity Banking, because we, at the time when we started Velocity Banking, we couldn't qualify for anything. So that's the reason why it's on the list as well. And what does this look like? How does it work? And I so appreciate this visual because I think this says it very, very well. And what it says is, hey, as cash flow continues to increase, meaning as I'm eliminating debt, I could care less around what's happening with the interest. Interest seems pretty scary. Like when we talk about getting a line of credit that might be sitting at 8%, 9%, 14%, 15%. It's like, wow, you're talking about I'm going to go now further in debt with a vehicle that has a higher interest rate, and I'm going to leverage I'm going to use my cash flow to also help eliminate that debt. Like, it's scary. But the key piece is, as your cash flow continues to increase, it allows you to eliminate debt more and put you in a position to where, regardless of what that interest rate might be, it's easily addressed. And I'm going to show it when we walk through this walk through um, the workbook or worksheets that we offer freely on our website. But when I'm walk through those worksheets, I'm going to walk through how this cash flow used effectively keeps this interest at bay, and therefore put yourself in a position to where all you do is end up increasing in cash flow as you eliminate these different debts. And then let's not also forget about the secondary benefits. Depending on the debt tool you're using, if you're using a credit card and you're using that credit card that offers points or cash back or the ability to be able to take vacations because of the points that you've accumulated, those secondary benefits are also available when you follow this process. So again, I think this is a pretty awesome analogy, as in what we're doing is we are eating up all of this debt to be able to put us in a position to where, regardless of the interest rates associated with it, it's not impacting our ability to be able to generate or increase our cash flow. So from the perspective of getting started, from the perspective of this process and moving her income in, it's a fixed income of 4862 into the debt tool that she already had in place when we started this conversation. Meaning, she called me saying, "Hey, I just got my second position home equity line of credit, and I want to make sure I'm using it effectively." So high level, what it would look like is income goes into the debt tool, and she's just simply going to pay this debt, and in the process, her cash flow ends up living on the debt tool. High level, that's exactly what this looks like. But when you dig into the details and you break down specifically what's being paid at this time, it looks a little bit like this. Of that 4862, we've got a certain portion of it that's just going towards normal expenses. And as you look at these expenses, assets, and credit card debt or debts in general, you might see, hey, I've got a rent up here and I've got a mortgage here. And this is intentional. She has a mortgage on a home that she is renting to her daughter. It's actually the original mortgage that we've been referencing that she's been paying on for the last 40 years. So her daughter and her kids live in a home that has a mortgage of about 1,056, and she's renting a place because she didn't want to live with her daughter, which again I can appreciate. She's paying rent of about 1090. So in essence, the mortgage that her daughter pays is in essence basically paying for the place that she's renting. And so the idea is, hey, I'm retired. I'm on a fixed budget. If I could get rid of this and now have my daughter just pay rent, I can pick up $1,000 in cash flow would give me more breathing room to be able to do other things. Maybe even start looking at the ability to be able to generate and or build a legacy around, hey, can I open up some type of properly structured cash value life insurance policy on my daughter or my grandkids or something like that? But it's kind of hard to have that conversation. It's kind of hard to think that way when I've got both a mortgage and I'm paying rent on a place. So I fully respect the fact that she wants to get rid of this mortgage, especially because she's been paying on it for the last 40 years. What would that look like? So, in order to effectively identify a debt tool that we're going to use to be able to generate or eliminate debt, in order to understand how to identify what that debt tool should be, we have to understand where our leverage is. And in her case, yeah, she could use a credit card for velocity banking if she wanted to, but because she's got this home with a $99,000 balance. The home is worth 288. So again, home is worth 288. She has a $99,000 balance on her mortgage. There's a fair amount of room that is not being leveraged, not being used. So identifying where the strategy around MPI on I'm sorry, understanding the strategy around velocity banking on how to reduce and or eliminate debt is key. And then that what that does is it frees up cash flow. So the first step is just understanding where you are today, where is your leverage located, and how can I access that leverage to be able to do other things. And so if we just took a snapshot of what happens in month one, again, we've got a line of credit, second position at 8% and a limit of $40,000. Before she could get that line of credit, the bank said, hey, you qualify for this 40,000, but we are going to need to pay off a certain amount of debt. So before she could receive that $40,000, they took it upon themselves to address about $28,000 of her debt. So in doing so, again, when we got on the call, she's got a $40,000 limit, second position home equity line of credit with a balance of $28,000. And it's because of that debt that was already addressed in that HELOC, her cash flow did jump up. So that's where we get it's actually $1,496 in cash flow. And our first step was to simply take all of those credit cards that has been plaguing her for years, group them together, and address them all. Meaning, I know she's got $40,000 in limit. You guys know I am not a fan of exceeding or approaching that limit in any way, shape, or form. But in my mind, an additional $3,000 on top of the 28 was already there. Not a big deal. And so, in doing so, not only did we increase the balance on this line of credit, but we also increased the cash flow by about $210. So if she started out at $1,496 and we picked up $210 in cash flow, so now we're sitting at what is that, $1,706, I believe. And so what does this look like? Well, now, because we've paid off all of these cards, we now have not just the payment for the regular bills, our regular utilities, cell phone, stuff like that. We've also got the cash flow that we've picked up from paying off these credit cards. And yes, we still have the HELOC in place. That HELOC has a balance on it. And we've got this mortgage that we're addressing as well. So when all of that is said and done, we pick up a cash flow of about 17, well, our cash flow ends up being at the end of the month about $1,706. But I want to throw in another piece. And this is something that I talk a lot with people that meet with me about, but I don't know that I've ever addressed it in a velocity banking example. So I wanted to bring it to light here. And that's this. Before she was looking at using, and I'll write it. Before she was looking at using a second position HELOC to do velocity banking, she had already picked up a 0% credit card. It was a 0% credit card, an Amex 0% credit card with a limit of about $2,000. And so she was already identifying, and again, you'll see this when we dig into the workbook, she'd already identified what bills can I pay by credit card. So she's already identified them. And it turns out she could pay her utilities. She could pay gas. She could pay her cell phone. Obviously, food by credit card is not a problem. And she could also even do her tithe by credit card. Banks have increased your ability to be able to tithe by credit card now. Go figure. Uh,
Bruh.
so, moral of the story is she's got this 0% Amex. And the thought process is I talk a lot about getting multiple uses out of a dollar. So, is there an opportunity to pay the normal expenses by card? And ultimately, what that means is if I'm paying the normal expenses by card, I am not paying them by the line of credit. I'm paying it through this Amex, and then I'm going to use the line of credit to pay off the Amex. What's the point? Like, why even go through that? Well, in doing so, she can now leverage the Amex to gather points, gather cash back. So it's allowing her to take advantage of some of those benefits, those additional benefits. You know, the fruits on the Pac-Man board. Gather some of the additional benefits along with having a pretty viable debt tool to be able to pay off debt. So there are two separate actions going here. She's doing velocity banking through a line of credit. It's open-ended, so she can put all of her income in and pay all of the bills from it. But in addition, her normal expenses, she's going to drive through a credit card, meaning she's already going to pay $125 for utilities. All she's doing is going to whoever the carrier is for those utilities, linking her credit card to it. So that $125 a month is now coming out of this Amex. And she's going to take the same $25 that she was already paying and pay that onto the Amex. So it stays at zero. But what does she do? What does she pick up? Well, because of the expense of the utilities on the card, she just got 3, 4, 5% cash back. She just picked up points that now she can leverage to take a vacation because she is retired. So she doesn't have other than making sure that her normal responsibilities are taken care of. Now here's her opportunity to be able to travel off some of the points generated by her normal expenses. Again, pretty powerful. And as mentioned, when you drive your expenses through this card, and just to be clear, to include the mortgage can be paid by this line of credit as well, but we did keep it separate. And I want to kind of break down or dig into this mortgage a little bit more. So again, and I apologize, my handwriting. We've got a mortgage. Let's see, I'll use that. So we've got a mortgage and we're sitting at the 20-year mark. So the home is worth $288K. She owes $99. The mortgage payment on that $99K is $1,056. And so the piece that I want to highlight is as we move down the path of paying off these debts, however long that takes, we're going to then want to address this mortgage. And again, we've been paying on this mortgage for 40 years. So the objective is how can I address this $99,000 that's owed on this mortgage? And I think the interest rate, if I remember correctly, is 4.25%. And that is a 4. 4.25%. So it's a decent interest rate compared to what interest rates are today. So I'm going to call it decent. And the balance on it, I'm going to say is significant to still have 20 years left on it. So that's a huge opportunity that we want to address. So what I want to just highlight here is what did it look like over time to be able to address this debt? And let's start, matter of fact, let's start here. Let's start first with the credit cards. So what ended up happening is she's got already a balance of $28,000. But then we added the additional credit cards on top of that 28, which pushed that balance up to about 31. So she's got a $31,000 balance on this line of credit. And just by simply using velocity banking and using the cash flow, that cash flow was 1706, just using traditional velocity banking, we end up paying off this line of credit, meaning the line of credit ends up being zero at the end of 18 months. So at the end of 18 months, the card is now zero. The home equity line of credit is now zero. The balance is gone. Awesome. Well, As mentioned, what we also want to do is address this mortgage. So we've got a $99,000 balance on this mortgage. We're at the 20-year mark paying 1056. Throughout this 18-month period, we didn't do anything different with the mortgage. We didn't add any additional payments. We continue paying this 1056. So at the end of the 18-month mark, when we've paid off $31,000 in debt, we still have a mortgage payment of 1056. And we have made incremental, I'll call it, impact to the balance on the mortgage. If it started at 99, at the end of the 18-month period, the balance on that mortgage is now 18,192. So again, what has happened at this stage? What has happened at this point? We've got a new mortgage balance of about 18,192. We've got a line of credit with zero balance on it, with room for 40 grand, and we've got cash flow of about 1796. Well, at this point, we want to now address or start to go after this home. So what do? We talk a lot about recasting on this channel. So what we're going to do is, and I'm just moving 20,000. So what you see here is I'm going to take $20,000 off that line of credit and reduce the balance on this mortgage. So it'll look something like this. Let's go here. 88,192 minus the $20,000 that we're going to drop onto this balance of this mortgage, which means the new mortgage balance is going to be somewhere around 68,192. That's the new balance on this mortgage. Well, if I went from 99,000 in 20 years to 88,192 in an additional 18 months, I am now sitting on this amortization schedule of this 8892. I'm sitting at year 18. I was at year 20. I am now at year 18. So what we want to do when we drop this $20,000 onto this mortgage, we want to now recast this mortgage based off that new balance, keeping it at the 18-year mark on the amortization schedule. So what does that look like? And sweetheart, we can either leave the full board up, because I'll pull it up on the side here, or you can just go over to the board. Oh, you've already done it. So we've got a home price of $68.92 here. I'll make this bigger. We've got a home price of $68.92. We're currently at the 18-year mark. And again, if we do nothing, her mortgage payment is going to stay $1056. She can put $20,000 onto the mortgage and she will continue paying the $1,056 every month, no problem. Or she can dump $20,000 onto the mortgage and recast it, recalculate the mortgage at this 18-year mark. So if we recalculate this mortgage at this 18-year mark, what happens then? Well, I think I've already done it, but let's do it anyway. When we do that, I'll make this bigger for you. The mortgage payment went from $1,056 to $452. So when the mortgage drops from $1,056 to $452, what does that do to your cash flow? Well, it takes that 1056 payment down to 452, and that's a difference of about $600. So in essence, your cash flow has just gone from 1706 plus an additional $600. So now we're at 1306. And again, I'm rounding, but the bottom line is your cash flow increases. And so as a result of your cash flow increasing, and if you slide back over to the vibe board, sweetheart. You're leaving it half? That's fine. Oh, you might want to make me smaller. So when let's come here. So now we're sitting here. And again, we've put $20,000 on this number, which drops it drops the balance on the mortgage to $68,192. But the balance on the line of credit went from zero up $20,000 because we dumped $20,000. We pulled $20,000 from the line of credit and dumped it onto the mortgage. When I took $20,000 and dumped it onto the mortgage, it dropped the balance down to 68, which dropped my balance due, which also increased my cash flow, but my balance on my line of credit went up. So how long does it take using the additional cash flow that I have? Again, we're sitting at somewhere around, we went from 1706 up another $600. So we're somewhere around $2,300 a month in cash flow. How long does it take for that $2,300 to pay off that line of credit again? Well, I think we're talking about another, what did I say? Somewhere around 8 months or so. And so in approximately 8 months, this balance on the line of credit is zero again. Well, when the balance is zero again on this line of credit, what happened with the mortgage during that period of time? Well, 8 months. And sweetheart, I'm sorry, but I know we're going back and forth, but if you go back over to the calculator, what happened during that 8-month period? Well, if I look at the amortization schedule, during that 8-month period, the balance went from the original 68,192 down to about 66,485. So I'm still within that year 18. So I'm still 18 years left on my mortgage, even though it took me 8 months to pay down that line of credit, meaning I'm still in year 18. So because I'm still in year 18 and I just dumped, I have available to me another 20,000. What would happen if I dumped $20,000 right here? So again, I know it's a lot. Started out started out after 18 months at $80,000, $88,000, $88,192. Dumped 20,000 on it. That put me at 68,192. Recast the mortgage, my cash flow increased. It took me 8 months to pay down that line of credit. Because it took me 8 months to pay down that line of credit, I was making my regular mortgage payment during that period of time. And because I'm making my regular mortgage payment during that period of time, the new balance at the end of that 8-month period on my mortgage is now 66,485. Well, because my balance on my line of credit is now zero, I'm going to do what now? Take another 20,000 and dump another 20,000 onto this line of credit. So if I dump another I'm going to take another 20,000 and dump it onto this mortgage. So the 66, let me just make sure I remember my number real quick. Yep, the 66,485. So I'm going to take another 20,000 and dump it onto the 66,485, which means it's now 46,485. So let me restate it because it gets confusing. I started out at 68,192. It's now 8 months later. At the end of the 8th month, I am now sitting on my mortgage at 68,485. Right? No, I'm sorry, 66,485. 66,485. I'm now going to dump another $20,000 onto the mortgage, which means it brings my balance to 46,485, still in year 18. So I'm going to go back to my bank. I'm going to say, hey, bank, I know I just recast this mortgage 6 months ago or 8 months ago. I know I reduced my mortgage payment from 1056 down to 452 or whatever that dollar amount was. But now I want to take another 20,000 and dump it onto my mortgage. So the first question is, will a bank allow me to do it? Well, there are banks out there that will allow you to do unlimited recasting. And in most cases, the banks who allow you to do it state it has to be a minimum of $10,000 or more. Well, I'm dumping $20,000 in this case. So I'm dumping $20,000 onto the $66,000 mortgage, which changes the balance down to 46. And now I'm going to recast it again. So recalculate. So notice, I just went from $452 a month down to $308. So this is now my new payment that I'm making, still with 18 years left on my mortgage, $308 a month. which means what? My cash flow just increased again. It went from 452 down to 308. So that's a difference of roughly 150 bucks. Let's call it 140 bucks, which means that $2,300 cash flow that I had 8 months ago has now gone up another 150 bucks to about 24,500 or $2,500. So what does that mean? Well, we come back over to the Vibe board. It means now it's going to take me another approximately 6-8 months to pay off this balance on this line of credit again. And when I pay off this line of credit again, I'm going to have a new balance on this mortgage sitting here. And I think I got this right here. So in essence, what ends up happening is once I get here and I've paid off this line of credit again, I'm going to go back to that mortgage, to that bank, because now, again, this took me year 18. I had 18 years left on my mortgage. Here, got 18 years left on my mortgage. After another 7-8 months, when I pay off this line of credit again, we're now in year 17, meaning I got 17 years left on this mortgage. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to the bank and say, hey, I want to recast again. But this time, I'm a little bit bolder. And this is what I'm hoping Evelyn feels. Hopefully, but from here to here, she has realized that this process works. From here to here, she has increased her cash flow almost double. So what that means is, I would hope that from here to here, she realizes that, you know what, I can be, if my goal is to pay off this mortgage, if the goal is to put myself in a position to where my daughter is now making the payments for the rental place that I'm in, I'm not just going to dump 20 grand at this point. I'm going to spend the whole 40. I'm going to dump the whole 40 into this mortgage. So what does that look like? All right, sweetheart, this will be the last time. Head it back over. So what does that look like? Well, first, let's come here. Where am I sitting on the amortization schedule? Like I said, it took me about another 8 months. So I'm sitting somewhere around, I want to say it was 45. Yep, 45,321. I'm sitting right here. Took me another 8 months to pay off that line of credit. So when I paid off this line of credit, the new balance on this mortgage is now 45,321. So what am I about to do? Well, I'm about to take $40,000 from this line of credit and pay onto this mortgage another $40,000, which means it's going to drop the balance from 45,321 down to 5,321. And sweetheart, I wish I could hear you, because this is where I have to reiterate, I'm really petty when it comes to banks, life insurance companies, and financial institutions. I am super petty. Bruh. What I mean by that is, from my perspective, if this was me, I'm not saying she's going to do this, but if this was me, I'm going to drop this $40,000 onto this $45,000 mortgage, which means I still have 17 years left on this mortgage, and I will never pay this mortgage off. I'm going to pay whatever this mortgage payment is from this point forward on. But let's take a look at what that looks like.
So can you hear me
And I
now?
know you're on the screen, sweetheart, but let me just do this math real quick, and then we can talk about it. So we're at 45,321. And again, we are no longer at 18 months on the amortization schedule. We are now at 17. I keep saying months. We are no longer at 18 years on the amortization schedule. We're at 17 years. So now let's just recalculate this mortgage based off that dollar amount. Oh, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. Move too fast. So let me restate, because I confuse myself, so I'm probably confusing other people. So let me just restate real quick. We're sitting at 45,321 based off the 8th month of the amortization schedule. We're going to take $40,000 of leverage from the line of credit and dump it into this mortgage at 45,321. So when I put 45,000 into this mortgage of 45,321, the new mortgage balance isn't 45,321. The new mortgage balance is 5,321. Meaning, when I take $40,000 and dump it into this mortgage, what's left is $5,321. So now I'm going to recalculate the mortgage at the 17-year mark based off that dollar amount. So that leaves me with a mortgage payment of, let me make it a little bit bigger for you. That leaves me with a mortgage payment of 37 bucks. And again, from my perspective, I will never pay this mortgage off. I've got 17 years at $37 a month. I'll pay it for the rest of my life. Why? Because I want to be able to go back to the well as many times as I want. I want to be able to go back to the well and leverage this home as many times as I want. I want to take advantage of this 4.25% interest rate forever. Now, I could pay it off and I could be without a mortgage payment. I could. But as far as I'm concerned, my daughter's going to pay this mortgage payment. I'm not worried about it. I'm focused on where else can I eliminate any of my other expenses. But this $37 a month, I'm not concerned about. So when I do that, my cash flow increases. Because remember, it went from 308 now down to 37 bucks. In essence, I picked up not 1056, so that was the original mortgage payment. I picked up about 1,020 bucks, maybe 1,018 bucks on top of the 1,700 that I already had. So in essence, I'm at about $2,800 a month in cash flow versus the $1,500 a month I originally had. I just about doubled my cash flow by taking this approach. And did you have something to say while I'm here at the calculator before I move? Knowing I can't hear you, but if you'd like to jump on and talk about it, go right ahead. I'll do all of that. You want me to do it right now? Okay.
Okay, so while he does that, what I want to bring up about this particular part is that doing this allows you to continue to have an active line of credit, so an active trade line, right? One of the most crippling things that people do when they go debt free is now they don't have any credit. They don't have anything. So if you need to access credit, now you have no trade lines because you're debt free, right? The whole point of having credit is to be able to use it and to be able to leverage it. What we haven't talked about here is the fact that Evelyn was retired, has a fixed income, but what we have not discussed yet is what would she do in the event of her retirement income does not beat inflation. What will she do? She needs to buy a new car. She needs to be able to replace a roof. Like all of those things, she would not be in a position to just come up with that money, right? So it would have to come from somewhere. Doing it this way, not only does it allow her to become her own bank, so now she doesn't have to go and apply for a bank loan, hope that she gets approved, especially because she doesn't have any active lines of credit open. She has an active line of credit continually open, so she can become her own bank. So that HELOC then, in years later, keeping that open. And of course, there's terms with that too. Like you have to qualify to keep it open. There is a term for a HELOC. But doing it this way, she can qualify to continue to keep her own banking system essentially open, right? So what does this mean for Evelyn? It means that she is not at the mercy of anybody. She has options. Regardless of what happens, she has those options and she's able to take advantage of them. She can walk into a car dealership and pay cash if she wanted to because she has become her own bank. If something were to happen with her home or she has additional needs as she gets older, she has access to get whatever she needs and she understands how to quickly pay it back. Do you see how not having the access to this information, we have been crippling ourselves for decades, crippling ourselves and limiting our options or our access to options or better options, just simply because we lacked 30 minutes of information. And that's the craziest part about this. Whether you've watched a case study like this before or velocity banking how-to video before, imagine how many years we've gone and how much in interest we've paid and how many I would say, consequences. We have paid out simply because we thought we were at the mercy of and needed to have permission. This is taking back your power. This is saying I don't need to have permission. The only thing you have to give me permission for is to do it again. Just keep doing it. And if you don't give me permission, guess what I still have? Options. I still have options and ways that I can pivot to be able to utilize the leverage that I already have in a different way. This is just one way, and there are many ways to 10. So that's what I love about this. Can you hear me now?
I love you. I love
I
you.
love you too. All right.
Hell
Well,
yeah,
thanks.
I hear you. I hope I don't know. I don't. I have no idea how any of that translated, but I hope it came across okay.
And people thought we were like reading each other's minds. Well, I really appreciate everything that you broke down here. We do have some questions, so I want to bring those up. On that note, though, the questions are, some of them are about Evelyn's particular story. So I'm going to bring back up the vibe board just so that we can answer the question based off of where it is in the story. Okay.
Yep.
So if
So
you
let
have
me
a
just-
question,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. I know what you're about to do. Go ahead.
if you have a question, put it in the chat and put a Q in front of the question. It helps us to identify it. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and queue them up. So go ahead.
So just to, because we're at the end. So just so we're clear, we are sitting at this point where now we've taken $40,000 off the line of credit, and now the balance on that line of credit has now shot up. Like it's maxed out. I can't get any more. I don't have zero room on this line of credit. Might seem scary, but again, my hope is from here to here, she has learned that there was nothing to be afraid of because I've got the cash flow to address it all quickly. So in another, what was it? I think it was $40,000 that I ended up paying off from eight. Oh yeah, there it is. So from month 35 to month 48. So we're talking about another 7-8 months. I'm not doing math correctly, am I? I'm sorry.
It doesn't
10,
matter. It's
13,
not that long.
13 months. The point is, it's 13 months. It's another year. My point is, in doing this, she has now lifted that weight that she had been carrying for the last 40 years off her shoulders and put herself in a position to where every month between here and here, she's created more and more room on that line of credit that she can leverage and go do other things. She wanted to take a cruise. Maybe she ended up not paying it off at 48 months. Maybe she took a cruise here. Why? Because she created the room in this line of credit to be able to pay for that cruise. So, okay, that means it slowed the payment down or slowed the payment process down, which means it extended it to maybe 50 months, maybe 55 months. Go
I
ahead,
want that
sweetheart.
for her. No,
Right.
I want that for her.
Who
Yeah.
cares? Because what she has here is a vehicle that she can leverage and go do whatever she wants. What could she do here? What could she do here? What could she do here? With that mortgage? Not a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Ty wants to know, how do you use one debt tool to pay off another debt tool? The HELOC paying off the credit card balance. Like, what is the process? How do you do that?
So I think there's a way to show you how to do this, but I'm trying to think if I've got the tools to be able to show you, and I don't think I do. But I would be open to doing so because we've kind of done this. But here's what it breaks down to. Because she's got a line of credit that is open-ended, and because that line of credit can now be used as a checking account, meaning I can get my income into it, it has a debit card, it has a checkbook, which means I can link other creditors to this line of credit by simply going to my online account and changing it from a checking account to another account because it's going to ask for the banking and routing number. So if my line of credit has a banking and routing number, I can link the payment of that bill to my line of credit. So how can I use a line of credit to pay off another line of credit? One, if it's an open-ended home equity line of credit like this one is, then it's just simple as making an adjustment inside of your account. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's a credit card paying off a credit card, meaning I cannot use that credit card. That credit card does not come with its own banking and routing number, so I can't link the credit card to another credit card account. I can't. Is there a way to do it? Well, we do it today. And it's by leveraging or using that credit card as overdraft protection for my checking account. I'll give you a high-level example. And you could probably close up on me in this because there's nothing that I'm using on the vibe board to explain it.
Well, I thought maybe if you pulled up the velocity banking
Worksheet.
flow. Okay, yeah, yeah, or the worksheet. Yep.
But I still, in this case, as far as using a credit card to pay off a credit card, the sheet won't really explain that either.
Okay.
So if we're talking about using a credit card to pay off a credit card, how can you do it? And again, it's a lot of words, but this is how. And let me use our personal situation. We bank with Bank of America. So if we banked with Chase, we could do it with Chase. If we bank with USAA, we could do it with USAA, but we'd have to follow these steps. We bank with Bank of America. Bank of America offers their own credit cards. So I'm not using a credit card that I got from Chase or a credit card that I got from Edward Jones or whoever else. I'm using a credit card that I received from Bank of America. And I link the Bank of America credit card that I have as overdraft protection on the checking account that I pay bills from. So when I do that, well, like what is the idea behind overdraft protection? The idea behind overdraft protection is when the balance goes below zero, instead of it causing a negative impact on my account, it will then pull whatever that negative amount is from the card, which means the balance on the card goes up, the payment from the checking account is made, and so therefore my checking account stays at zero. So how do I pay a credit card with a credit card? Well, I leave the checking account at zero. When I leave the checking account at zero, any payment that's being withdrawn from that checking account creates a negative charge, right? Because there's no balance. There's no money in the checking account for it to pull from. So if it's a $150 utility bill and I have, or $150 American Express bill, and if it's direct debited on July 15th or the 15th of every month, when that payment is made on the 15th, it's going to create a negative occurrence inside that checking account. But because my Bank of America credit card is linked to that checking account, it's going to cause the balance on that credit card to go up from wherever it is today, plus $150 more. But the American Express credit card has now been paid. So I have effectively just used a credit card to pay off a credit card by keeping my checking account at zero. So that's the how. Go ahead, sweetheart.
And we have this fully broken down where we take you through like the back end of our bank account to show what those phrases are, where those options are in, at least in Bank of America, because that's what we can show.
Right.
But we broke that down. What you want to look for is how we got ahead 200 months ahead on our mortgage in 8 months. That was our first 8 months with our first position HELOC. And then the other one is how to pay your mortgage with a credit card. Those two live streams will break that process down. But that's a great question. Okay, Veronica says, doing the chunking to the mortgage, is it not getting her closer to actually having a first lien HELOC?
Or couldn't she just have gotten a first lien HELOC? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. I wanted to take this from her perspective. One, she liked the interest rate that she has, and because her daughter's the one is actually making the payment. It was less about paying off the home or converting the mortgage from one thing to another, and it was more about increasing the cash flow. So effortlessly, meaning what does it take to recast? It's a recalculation. It's administrative. What does it take to get a second position HELOC? Based off the value of the home and the mortgage that she has and where her credit score was, it was a no-brainer for that too. So it was less hoops for her to jump through. And what's easier? What's easier is a second position HELOC because it's easier to qualify for. The scary part about a first position HELOC is, what are the first position HELOC interest rates today? Again, she's got a 4.5% on her mortgage. She's got a second position HELOC that she got an introductory rate, and I think it ends up somewhere around 8%. Well, if she was going after a first position HELOC, what are those interest rates? I'm hearing 9, I'm hearing 11, I'm hearing 12, I'm hearing 15. I'm hearing some pretty high first position home equity line credit interest rates. Would that matter? Should that matter? It doesn't. Like, I can mathematically show you where she would have still been able to accomplish all of this using a first position HELOC. So I think it's really more preference. It's not a have to or you should do this. It's preference. because you're right. We can make it all work as long as the cash flow is there. It's really about the cash flow. If you got the right amount of cash flow, it doesn't matter what the tool is that we use. Go ahead,
And
sweetheart.
well, and leverage, which brings us to Jesse's question. So if you pay off the mortgage, do you lose the debt tool?
So, okay, you pay off the mortgage. If you've paid off the mortgage balance is zero. You owe no more mortgage payment. But in paying off the mortgage, I increased the balance on the line of credit. So I still have the line of credit. So it's still there because, excuse me, the line of credit is based on a draw period, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever that draw period is. So just because I paid off the mortgage, these are two separate vehicles. That's why the position matters. The mortgage is in first position. The home equity line of credit is in second position. So if I pay off the mortgage, all I did was address the item in first position. That second position home equity line of credit was based off how much the home was worth. So these are two separate items, and I'm taking two separate actions. So just because I paid off the mortgage doesn't mean the home equity line of credit I lose. But if I pay off the mortgage and I pay back the line of credit, then the line of credit is gone if I pay it off, if I pay it back, if it's zero, if I, once I pay off the line of credit, you know what? I don't know the answer to this question. Once I pay off the line of credit, my assumption is I am now done with the line of credit. But if I haven't hit my draw period, it doesn't convert to anything. So I can have it at zero and still be able to use it over and over and over again. I've never let my line of credit get to zero. So that's the reason I don't know what actually happens inside of the account. But my gut says just because the line of credit is zero, the agreement that I signed with the bank said this is my draw period. So just because it's zero doesn't mean I stop using or stop having or no longer have the line of credit. I should be able to have it throughout that draw period. And then once that draw period ends, the balance the balance converts to a loan. But if there's no balance, then there's nothing to convert to a loan. And so then at that point, it's gone.
Well, I think he was asking if you pay off the mortgage. So can the line of credit, though, is on the equity of the home. So the equity still exists even if the mortgage does not. Because
And
it's
again,
not a,
I thought I said it, but let me restate it because maybe it wasn't clear. The mortgage is in first position. The line of credit is in second position. These are two separate vehicles based off two separate, I'll call it equations. Meaning you didn't get the mortgage based off how you got the HELOC, and you didn't get the HELOC based off the mortgage. The HELOC is based off the amount of what the home is worth. So what I mean is when you have your mortgage and when you have that second position HELOC, these are two separate vehicles. Just paying off one does not mean the other one is gone. Just paying off one just pays off the one. And in this case, if you just pay off the mortgage, you still have this line of credit available because the contract you sign around that line of credit has a draw period. So you have it through that draw period. So hopefully that's a little bit better.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure since you were talking about, yeah. Okay. So Rose says, can a custodian just cancel the line of credit and ask you for the balance?
So can a bank come along and say, hey, you've been misusing the line of credit that we've given you? And can a bank come along and say, you don't deserve it anymore? So we are going to convert this line of credit to a loan because we just need our money back because we're not confident that you're going to effectively be able to leverage or use this vehicle the way it's designed to be used. Can they do that with your second position home equity line of credit? They can. Have they done that? They have. But I think it has more to do with how that line of credit is being used and the state that the bank is in, because I've got a few different examples of this. I've got examples where because the line of credit has been maxed out throughout a certain duration, banks have converted that line of credit to a loan so they can get their money back. So it became a standard loan at a stagnant monthly payment so they can get their money back. And I've also seen banks that went out of business. And I've had clients who had a line of credit, second position home equity line of credit, but when the bank went out of business and they sold their bank, that bank to another bank, the new company came in, PNC, the new company came in and said, hey, I know you had a line of credit with this company over here, but we're not that company. So we're going to improve our balance sheet. We're going to convert that line of credit to a loan, and they are now responsible. So I've seen this situation occur. So is that possible? Can it happen? Yes. I go back to this example here though. Notice throughout this equation, throughout this example today, I was being very, I'll call it a conservative on how much of the room I was using on this line of credit, and it is for this purpose. I was only using 20,000 because in my mind, she's got $1,500 in cash flow every month. That's about 18 grand a year. So in my mind, if we only use half of it, about 20 grand. If they converted it back to a loan, it would take about a year to pay it off. No harm, no foul. She could get out of this pretty quickly. But if it's maxed out at 40 grand, it could get pretty ugly because she doesn't have necessarily have the cash flow to be able to address it. So that the first, I'll call it 2.5 years, I was pretty conservative. Those last 13 months or 12 months, I went aggressive because we've got the history that shows this thing works. And because of the cash flow increase, what was the cash flow increase? It was almost $3,000 a month. What's 3 times 12? 3 times 12 is 36. So if she used 40 grand, approximately how long at $3,000, I'm sorry, at $36,000 a year in cash flow, how long would it take for her to pay off that 40 grand? About 12 months, which is about the same amount of time that we were using when we were being a bit more conservative. So I felt fairly comfortable in being able to do this. But I had one of my business partners reach out to me yesterday, and he said, "Hey, I've got a client who is thinking about getting a first position home equity line of credit, or he's got this much on balance on his mortgage, and he's got this much equity. What should he do?" And my response to him was my same as my response to Evelyn, which would be same as my response to you. It depends on the cash flow. Because what we don't want to do is put ourselves in a position to where we are leveraging ourselves. So if your cash flow says you can pay off this debt within 12 months, I'd go for it. Meaning the balance that I would, or the limit that I would go for in that line of credit would be double what it is I'm able to pay off within a year. So notice she had 40 grand, she pay off 20 of it within about 12 months. So she has doubled the amount in room on her line of credit based off the amount of cash flow that she has on a monthly basis. And that's kind of the rule of thumb that I would use. A lot of words.
Antonio says during 2008, when the market crashed, they reduced or eliminated individual lines of credit depending on the home values at the time and if you were not using it or managing it correctly. And this is where understanding the power of your leverage sincerely matters. But it also, I just want to remind everyone, it wasn't just people who weren't using their lines of credit responsibly who lost. People who were using their lines of credit responsibly during this crash lost. People who had paid extra on their mortgage and those payments had just sat there inside of their mortgage and they couldn't access any of it because they now could not qualify to get, and they weren't eligible to get a HELOC. There wasn't a HELOC to get because now their equity had just gotten crushed as well when the housing market crashed. There's so many things that were wrong with what happened to people during this crash, like significant, lifelong, generational impacts that happened during this crash. But this is why we have to understand where our control lies and what the things that we can do to keep ourselves in a position of liquidity, in a position of being flexible with our options. Because if we're just waiting, please, sir, may I have some options? Then they get to decide what's good enough for you and good enough for everybody else. Meanwhile, they would never say that those options were good enough for them, right?
So I think there's two ways to look at 2008, because just so we're clear, we were heavily impacted by what happened in 2008. So I think there's two ways of looking at it, because I have people that I talk to who view 2008 and they are victimized by it. Meaning, as a result of how things occurred in 2008, I don't want to do A, B, and C, and D because I'm afraid that if 2008 happened again, I will be impacted by A, B, C, and D. And that's one way of looking at it. I look at 2008 like this. What I'm not going to do is put myself in a position to where if 2008 happens, I am over leveraged and impacted to the point where I am regretting any actions that I've taken. So it's being conscious of the fact that, you know what, maybe I qualify for a $100,000 line of credit. but my cash flow says I probably should only get 40,000.
That part.
Well, do I not get the 100,000? I'm probably going to get the 100,000. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to leverage more than 40,000 in it. So I'm going to put my own guardrails around this process so that if 2008 happens, I am not putting myself or my family or my home or my livelihood in a position to where it'll be affected. Versus, I'm not going to get a line of credit at all. I'm going to allow the bank to leverage my home, but I'm not going to leverage my home to be able to put myself in a much more credit worthy or wealth building position. I want, you said it very, very well. I am going to take control. I am going to get self-directed. I'm going to have ownership over this process, and I'm going to I'm going to be disciplined enough to put the proper guardrails around myself so that I don't put myself, my family, my home, anything in a position to where, God forbid, something happens with the market that I can't control. God forbid, something happens with the bank that I can't control. I am somehow placed in a position to where I now have to sell my home, which is what we ended up having to do. I'm not going to do that, but I'm smart. I'm smart enough to know, and conscious enough to know that, hey, I need to just make sure that I do my due diligence to keep this thing under control. And there's only so much that I can control. What piece is that? I can control my cash flow, and I can control how much I spend. I can control that.
You know, a lot of the industries in real estate, because there's so many different angles on who invests and why they invest. But one that I recently heard of was these investors who love the trends that are the Instagram home trends, right? So the Pinterest home trends. It's taking the HELOC to put in upgrades in your home for a better lifestyle, right? These HELOC, this is where the banks would advise you to take out this line of credit as well. But the problem is that you're not getting any money back. Those countertops are not paying you back. That flooring is not paying you back. It doesn't matter what you saw on TikTok or Instagram or Pinterest. That wallpaper is not paying you back. None of these decor trends that were going to change in a few years anyway, none of them are putting cash flow in your pocket unless you have a business where it does, maybe, I don't know. But for the majority of people, it's just to look at. And we will make payments on what we look at. And there's a whole industry of people who are waiting like vultures. They are waiting for you to not be able to afford that house anymore. They are waiting for you to have to short sell that house at some point. They are waiting like vultures because what you've just done, they don't have to do fix and flips anymore. There's so many people who are addicted to spending money in this way, and they've prioritized their value system is just completely flip-flopped. And so now it's just a matter of time when lifestyle and what things look like have been prioritized to the point where it's just a market condition that can flip you out from underneath your house. They're waiting. They're waiting to buy it, and they will buy it for pennies on the dollar because they have it and they can pay cash and they can help you out fast to get you out of that house. And that's just what it is. We have to start changing the conversation, and we have to start normalizing this trend of what it is that we value in our society is very broken, and it has a lot of people in positions where they feel like, well, at least if I can't get in where I fit in, I can at least feel like I'm fitting in, right? If I can't have all these nice things, I can at least feel like I have it because it looks that way and it makes me feel some kind of way. But I'm telling you right now, financial peace is a different kind of sleep. Financial freedom is a different level of anxiety reduction, right? There is no retail therapy needed when you have reduced all of the things that you needed the therapy for in the first place. And a lot of that comes down to how we feel about our financial positioning. That's really the truth. Whether you make $300,000 a month or you have $3,000 a month and on a fixed income. It doesn't matter. The majority of people still have the same amount of cash flow left over because we end up living at our lifestyles.
That is true.
What's so important about these particular cases when people call in or when they book a call and we're going over these financial profiles is some people are hesitant to call because obviously Donnell's going to see. We don't judge. We know that people are where you are where you are, and as long as you're getting started and you're starting to right the ship, right? That's the part that matters. We literally don't care. We've had couples who one of them said, "I am not going to stop this spa treatment," right? Remember, I'm not going to stop. This is self-care for me. $200 a month, whatever it was self-care. And as I'm listening to that, it's not the judgment part, it's the understanding the mindset. Like, we've justified things too. Maybe it would be different if they were, or you were listening to the things that we were justifying. It's the mindset piece, and it's more important that we help people understand that it could be $250 a month just in self-care services to make you feel like you can keep going, right? Because that's really what it comes down to is a need in that way. But a lot of people are doing this with their tithes. I couldn't say this earlier, but when you said that now you can tithe from your credit card, I cannot. I seriously cannot fathom any place that would desire you to be in debt in order to do this type of caring for whatever the institution is. We need to talk about this. We really do, because there's a lot of people out here who are hurting, who are suffering, who are struggling. They can barely afford to live, but this somehow has become completely non-negotiable for whatever the reason is. Now, this isn't, whatever your beliefs are, that's not what this live stream's about. Has nothing to do with that at all. But I cannot believe, I can't wrap my head around it, that you are supposed to struggle and suffer. I can't, especially not also put it on a credit card. We have to flip this around. But pay yourself first is where this all starts from. And investing in yourself, investing in your future starts with even just what Evelyn did. 30 minutes, 45 minutes on a call has completely changed. How long has she paid on that house? You said 40 years?
She bought it in 1984. She bought it in 1984. I want to say it was 47,000 in 1984. It's worth 288 today, and she's got a balance on it of 99.
Well, we could unpack this a lot. And on Wednesday, we're going to unpack a little bit more on what keeps. So we know we've gone over a lot of these steps on what to do, right? Tons of steps. We're not done with the questions, by the way. I need to bring back up. But why do people not get started? That's even more important. And that's what we're going to go over on Wednesday. Okay.
In addition, I know you want to get into the questions.
go ahead.
In addition, because what we can do is just stay in the questions. And in addition, what I'll do on, what is that day? Wednesday? Yeah, on Wednesday, what I'll do is we'll also jump into the actual sheet, because a lot of people, like, you see it here and man, it makes sense. But when you have the workbook in front of you, it's like, what goes where, and why doesn't this thing calculate the way it shows it's calculating here? So what I want to do, what we can do on Wednesday as well, is let's step through the sheet and understand how things are placed, so that you can see how this sheet works on its own, meaning the visuals you see here on the graph working down that line of credit, it functions the exact same way in the sheet. But
Yeah,
how's that possible?
that's from the sheet. The
Right, it's
worksheet
straight from the
produced
sheet.
that. Yeah.
Yep. So let's walk through how those values are produced on the sheet as well. So we're going to stay here. We're going to break down some of the challenges that we all face when we're trying to do velocity banking and dig into those details. And in addition, I'll walk through the workbook as well. Is that
Okay.
fair?
Ty wants to know, at what point would that 8% on the HELOC have mattered? It's a great question.
Okay. So what was beautiful about this example is she came to the table with $1,500 in cash flow. Now, she didn't start out with $1,500 in cash flow because remember, the balance on that home equity line of credit wasn't zero. The balance on that home equity line of credit was 28,000. So if the bank paid off $28,000 worth of debt, that's $28,000 worth of monthly payments that she was paying that she's no longer paying. So when our conversation started, her cash flow used to be something less than $1,500, but as a result of paying off that debt, her cash flow became $1,500. So, what is my point? When does that 8% matter? It is solely based, to me, it's based on your cash flow. Because let me give an example. Let's say she's got this $28,000 line of 28,000, this $40,000 line of credit, but her cash flow is no more than $100 a month. She's got a $40,000 line of credit, and her cash flow is $100 a month. And we understand velocity banking to mean this: I'm going to dump all of my income into this line of credit. I'm going to pay bills from this line of credit, and my cash flow is going to drive the balance down on this line of credit. Well, if my cash flow is only $100 a month, and the interest rate on this line of credit is 8%, and I've got a $28,000 balance now, let's call it 30. I got a $30,000 balance now. 8 times 30, 2,400. 2,400 divided by 12 is $200 a month. My cash flow is $100, but the interest only payment on this line of credit is $200 a month. Again, cash flow is 100. The cost, the monthly payment on this line of credit is $200 a month, which means every time my cash flow goes into the line of credit and I pay bills from the line of credit, the balance doesn't drop. The balance is actually increasing $100. Why? One, because my cash flow is too low, and two, because my interest rate is 8%. So when does it matter? The interest rate matters when your cash flow isn't sufficient enough to negate the impact of the interest rate, which again is why I love that visual of the Pac-Man. The Pac-Man is designed to, that's your cash flow increasing as you're eliminating debt. So as your cash flow continues to increase and you're eating more debt, it negates the impact of the ghosts. So the ghosts end up running from you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Pull it back up. I think it's good for people to have that visual when you're talking about it. But the other part of this is what are the full benefits of utilizing here? I'll hide
No,
my
you're good.
comment.
You're good.
Not only are you eating the bills, but you're also eating the additional cash flow that gets released, and on top of the perks and the benefits, right?
Yeah, and I'd say it's closer to, and again, I'm dating myself, but it's closer to Super Pac-Man, because if you remember, Pac-Man got really, really big, and it's really closer to that, meaning as you're eliminating this debt, your cash flow becomes so large that this interest, again, it's almost eating a power pellet and turning those ghosts blue,
Yeah.
because your cash flow is so large that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 8%. It doesn't matter if it's 15%, because your cash flow is reducing the balance so quickly that you're still paying less interest. It's
Right.
pretty powerful. Pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is powerful. We had a whole Super Mario Brothers live stream that we were going to do to show how this process is very much like video game. We just hadn't worked it completely all the way through. We didn't want to confuse anybody. So, but yeah, going down the pipes to go collect extra coins and coming back up, and how you can like teleport places. But the goal is to get to the pole, and how high you can jump from that pole is how much you get to take into the next round. And that's essentially what this is here too. You're just gamifying this at this point.
Right.
So what we hope is that people can see this differently, or attribute kind of a different sentiment to what this actually is. It will remove some of the fear and anxiety that cripples people from even taking the first step. Because it's really the most important thing is not that you completely understand, like, what if I make a mistake? We've made mistakes because we didn't know everything when we first got started. We just wanted to get started. First, we just started crushing debt. That was really it. Improving credit, building credit, increasing leverage. That's just where it started. So no matter where you are in your journey. The important part is that you start, then you can improve upon that. But you don't have to know everything about everything just to be able to get started and get some of these some of the strategy in place and start using it. And I think to your point, what you were saying about Evelyn is that by this point, if she is not super confident, like there is a problem.
Right.
No offense, Evelyn, but the problem ain't the strategy. But I could not agree more. Even during her call, she sounded like all I need to know is that I just need the confidence in the steps. Am I thinking about this right? Can you confirm these steps for me? And sometimes that's all people need, right? It's just that confirmation. And that's powerful to be able to get that without having to pay for it, without having to continue coaching or being spoon-fed this stuff. You just get it all, access to all of it. We have a huge playlist here on our channel too, where you can learn from other examples that may be more like yours. Some of them are building family banks, leveraging each other inside of the family, mother-daughter, father-daughter, lots of different examples. Okay, my Chan 33 says, could you do these via your checking account? I don't have a HELOC, or wants to know, can they do it with a high limit credit card?
So I do not consider myself a velocity banking guru. I don't. I'm a common sense guy. And so if I don't have a high limit credit card and I haven't put myself in a position where I could even qualify for a home equity line of credit, then absolutely, we're going to do this thing with our normal checking account. But the gurus won't call this velocity banking. We're just using debt snowball or debt avalanche or whatever it might be, meaning the piece that banks love is when your income comes in and you spread it out amongst all their bills. Banks love that. All we would do is, instead of spreading all of your cash across all the bills, meaning I'm going to pay an extra $100 on this credit card, I'm going to pay my mortgage twice a month, I'm going to pay an extra $200 on this student loan. Instead of doing that, we're going to pay the minimums on everything, and we're going to pick one. Maybe we pick the smallest one. And we're going to focus all of our extra money on that smallest one. And when that smallest one is paid off, maybe we pick up another $30 in cash flow. And then the following month, we're going to focus our attention on the next smallest one, or the next largest one rather. And we'll just keep moving up. And then as we do that, what happens? As we do that, our credit profile starts to change. These companies that wouldn't give us a line of credit if we wanted one starts to look at us differently. Why? Because we've been methodically addressing this debt. And as a result, now we're putting ourselves in a position to where we can get a higher limit credit card, or we're putting ourselves in a position to where we can qualify for a personal line of credit, or we're putting ourselves in a position to where, hey, I can now qualify for a second position home equity line of credit. So just because you don't have one, that doesn't mean we don't apply the strategy of velocity banking to how you normally pay bills today. So yeah, not having a high limit credit card or a home equity line of credit, that doesn't matter. We're just going to apply the strategy of focusing our attention on a bill at a time, as opposed to spreading our cash across all bills. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull the rest of their comments up all together. So this one says, if I only have a mortgage, no other debt, does it make sense to do this? Just looking to pay it off at this point. Hold on. Hold that thought. It says, I have about half my mortgage balance in cash. Any suggestions? Now, here's the part where when we're talking about velocity banking, we're heavily focused on reducing the debt and showing that particular strategy. And sometimes it has to be segmented like this. But where we usually land is, what is the goal? We usually
Go ahead.
We usually land there. So what we're not talking about this particular live stream, which we do almost on every single one, is, but what is Evelyn's goal? Even in beginning of the beginning of the process, it has to start with what is it that you're trying to do? If the goal is just to pay off the mortgage, why? What does that solve? What's the purpose of that? What solution? Because it can't just be that you just, in your heart of hearts, you just wanted to have the mortgage paid off. Why? What's the purpose? Is it because it frees up you don't have to make the payment anymore and you need that cash flow? What are you going to do with it? And that's the conversation we love having around here. So if you have half of your mortgage in cash sitting in a bank and you're looking for, let's do the math on that. I think that would be a great case study. Matter of fact, that'd be a great example to do on here, is doing the math on that, because you're not alone. There are a lot of people who have money under their mattress that's actually losing value. It's not gaining any value. Doesn't matter what we see going on with the banking system. It's not gaining any value under your mattress, because inflation is making every one of those dollars worth less and less and less every single day. And it's not just standard rate of inflation for our economy. It's inflation that's the wild west of inflation right now in regards to particular goods and services that aren't regulated. Prescription drugs being one of them, groceries being another one of them. In 2 years, groceries have more than doubled, which is crazy, because now that dollar that was sitting there could buy, right, $1 worth of stuff 2 years ago, and now it's only worth 50 cents. That's crazy. So, did you want to address anything here?
Sure. So we get asked a lot. I get asked a lot, and I'm sure she does too. So I guess I'll leave it at we. We get asked a lot. Man, as much information as you guys give away, why isn't your channel like larger?
Yeah.
And we confuse the algorithm. Like, if this was a velocity banking channel, then we would actually be much larger than we are. But this is not a velocity banking channel. If this was a cash value life insurance channel, we would be a lot larger than we are. But this is not a cash value life insurance channel. If this was a self-directed IRA 401k channel, me and Mark Cole are going at it all the time. But this is not a self-directed IRA and 401k channel. You know what this channel is? And I don't think the algorithm has figured out where we fit. This channel is a leverage channel. This is about your leverage. It doesn't matter where it is. It's about how you're leveraging how you're putting this leverage in a position to be a bank, to be a life insurance company, to be a financial institution. So what I love about this question is this: half your mortgage sitting in a shoebox, sitting in a checking account, sitting under your wherever it is. How is it currently being leveraged? Are you leveraging it? If you're not leveraging it, who is leveraging it? And if it's not being leveraged, that half your mortgage that's sitting wherever it is, my gut says it's not worth the same thing it was today, tomorrow. Otherwise, there are some people that are very happy with the fact that you've got half your mortgage sitting in a position that allows them to leverage it whenever they want. And our objective is to help you understand how to take that power back. Like, you should be, that money that you're referencing, those are your employees. Those employees have been on break a long time. Those employees have been smoking that cigarette around the corner, just waiting on you to come around the corner and say, it's time to get to work. How is your leverage working for you? Because to me, that's what I hear. I hear that you've got half your mortgage in leverage that hasn't made you a dime. You've got employees sitting there doing nothing, waiting for more employees to come over so they can show them how to sit there and do nothing.
But you're not alone. There's a lot of other people who are doing the same thing. And a lot of it is because we were told to do these things. We were told that this was safe.
Part. This is conditioning. Nowhere in here did I say you're doing anything wrong. But you have to ask yourself, who convinced you that keeping half your mortgage in cash sitting somewhere was okay? My gut says the person that convinced you, when you peel back the layers, was someone who could give a damn about you.
And is not tied to your outcome. The other part is, ask anybody who's giving advice to you or who is just convinced that this is the right way to do it. If they can't show you the math, if they can't prove it, then ask them why do they care so much that this is how you do it. There are many ways to 10, and a lot of people hold on this is the one thing. You have to have 5 plus 5. So whatever it is, you got to go make sure you get a 5 and another 5, and that is how you get to 10, and that is the best way to get to 10. It's the only way to get to 10. And if you want to be an elite like me, then that is what you need in order to get to 10, when the truth is that nobody does that unless you're born with 2 5s. Not all of us were. So now we have to be able to peel the layers back and unpack this. Saving money on your mattress, it's sitting in your savings account. I don't even care if it's being called a high yield savings account. None of that even matters, because there are just more likely probably other places that it could be working harder for you and be more impactful.
And here's the other part that we've been lied to about, and that is, so I also understand why you would want a dollar amount like this readily available. It's probably because most of the vehicles that you've been uh, dumping your money into are in vehicles that are actually that you maybe have been told that this vehicle is designed to help generate wealth for you, like a company's 401k or some IRA that you might have, or some brokerage account. But the piece that they didn't tell you was all of those vehicles are are tied to this equation that implies risk. Meaning, even though it's a retirement account or a savings account or a brokerage account, it may have this little piece in the equation that impacts or has the that causes risk. And so, therefore, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to take this half my mortgage that I have liquid and put it in any of these vehicles, because here's what I know about those vehicles. When anytime someone sneezes in the market, my money's impacted. So I am safer keeping my money right here, wherever that right here might be. But here's the part. What if you could put your money in a position to where it could compound and grow with the reduced and or eliminated risk? In most cases, we are not educated on what those vehicles are. And the truth about those vehicles is it's a very limited list anyway. Meaning there aren't hundreds of thousands of ways you can get your money working for you and they not be a part of the market. But they do exist. And so if we did a better job collectively, again, if financial institutions, life insurance companies, and financial advisors cared about you at all, then they would be educating us more about where to put our money to put it in a position so it has reduced risk. So instead of you putting it under your mattress, or instead of you putting it in that closet, or allowing it to sit in that checking account getting you 0.01% interest, it would be in a different vehicle. But who benefits from you not? Who benefits from you keeping your money where it is? It's those institutions. So 9 times out of 10, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just that you've been conditioned to go, you know what? I better keep half my mortgage sitting right here because it needs to be protected. Versus, where are those vehicles that my money should be sitting so it can go make more employees for me? And God forbid, man, I hope, if nothing, if you don't take anything else from this channel, we are focused on putting your money in a position so that it is safely recruiting other employees for you to go make you wealth.
Well, I have to bring this up since you brought it up. It's obvious that it's all of the options that we have today are influenced by the same generation that thought meat and jello went together in a mold and made a fancy meal that you wanted to put in a magazine. And now we're in a position where they're still utilizing those same thoughts processes that were good enough for them back then, when some of these vehicles were having their day, right? They're having their day. It would be like us 20 years from now, 30 years from now, saying you really should get your own chickens because the price of eggs is insane. We have no idea what it's going to be then, right? But in our day, we had been convinced that the price of eggs was so expensive that it was worth having your own chickens. Forget how much it is to feed them, to take care of them, right? All of that stuff. It's no different than today. Essentially, we are still getting served up the meat and the jello in the molds. It's not a vibe. We don't need it anymore. It's not even healthy for us. And so they're just used to it, so it's okay by their standards, and we have to set new ones and say that's not okay. And what I mean by this in this analogy, I'm meaning it is not okay to not have adequate retirement income. If you cannot trade your time for money anymore, what are you going to do? They don't have options that are adequate for anybody right now. Nobody, not a single person. So we have to have our own, because when it comes down to that and we say, but I don't have enough and I don't have the options and I don't even have access to options that I need health wise, right? Doesn't matter. They say, oh, you should have done better. Should have done better. Should have been quicker. Should have prioritized yourself more. Hate that for you, but it's true. It's too late by then. So it's not about fear based. It's about waking people up to say it doesn't matter who's president or not. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't even matter if you think that the income that you're making is so good that you'll be able to make it and get started at a later time. You got plenty of time. Why would you wait? Why would you wait? Okay,
Sorry.
we're having a monsoon, so it's a hoboob, which is a dust storm. Are you good?
Hmm. As soon as Alexa stops talking.
Oh, that's Alexa. Okay. So that's why we double down out here. One, we know the power that it had for us in just being able to change the trajectory of of our lives and our future, our kids' future, generations to come. Not They have to adopt this information, but they really don't. By the time they understand what this means, there's things in place to make them understand, so that they have to then get on board. They have to become self-directed. And the whole concept and premise underneath the get self-directed is just that you can take control. It's not saying you have to or that you should, it's that you can. You get to. That's the most important part, is that we get to do this. We get to. There's so many people who choose not to every day, and they vote against themselves daily with their habits and their behavior and their choices and their mindsets. But we get to change all of that. We have the privilege to give ourselves permission to change that. For anybody who's joining us, by the way, in this book, we started this book, Be Your Future Self Now. And I would love to know, for those of you in the Facebook group who've been reading this along with us, we would love to know your feedback on that. So powerful. I've been loving it. But essentially, that's what we're saying is get self-directed, be your future self now, take control, make the changes, get educated, start today. That's all. That's all it is. Okay. Off of the meat and the jello, which we just sometimes we gotta go there, you know? Okay, so Peaky says, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I wonder if emergency alert comes in through the meat and the jello. It's kind of well played, Alexa. Okay, he says that Peaky, by the way, we love your support. Thank you so much for all of your support and inviting people. That's another way that you can be the change that you wish to see, is expanding your network and sharing with other people these concepts. There's a word I was looking for. I can't find it. See, my problem is that I see concepts and understand them when the numbers are in front of me and being explained. But when it comes to presenting these things, it's all bets are off. So I rely on those I share to spend the time to watch, full well knowing that attention spans are what they are and that it will just take more than one show. And that's
Bro,
really it.
she's been trying to get me to do 10-minute and 15-minute content for the last 6 years. And I think my issue is, I think that's a part of the conditioning. Like, we've been conditioned to accept the 10 and 15-minute content, but the truth is, if you really are trying to understand something, it's going to take. And I apologize for this being so long, but what I can't do is come out here and give you half of the thought. and you run off here trying to take action on half of the thought. Like you have to get it all. And it's a fire hose. I apologize for that too. Because what I'm sharing with you is how I think. And what this woman does is she does a great job of taking how I think and making it visual. Because otherwise it would just be me and a lot of hand waving.
A lot of math.
Right. Just a lot of hand. And not just that. Me and a lot of hand waving, and I thought it was going to be a whiteboard. So not just me and a lot of hand waving, me and a lot of bad handwriting too. So yeah, I apologize, man. I know this is heavy. But what I hope is it's the repetition part. I'm saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. And hopefully, what happens is it becomes, you know what? Not only does it make logical sense, the maths, and you hear it enough to where it becomes the new conditioning. And if enough of us get on board with saying the same things, we'll be just fine. But I know it's a tall order.
Yeah. Crab Spike says, this is my therapy. I got PTMD, post traumatic money disorder.
We all
I
do,
I love
man.
that. And it to your point though, there's even things and concepts that we both still struggle with when you're
Whoa.
changing your mindset. It's not necessarily a wow. Look at us with this new fresh mindset. We went to the mindset store and we had this new mindset installed. And now, gosh, every day from here forward, there's this rubber band. And we've been talking about different ways, which is where books like this come in and they become so helpful. Is how do you cut that rubber band that in a moment you don't even realize like how fast you rubber band back to some of your old habits and ways of thinking, right? And it's constantly having to call it out. Then you start seeing it everywhere and you go like, gosh, everybody's got it, everybody's infected with it. And it's difficult to be around people who are still making those choices, right? So then you got to get a new circle and you're trying to decondition yourself so that you can make different choices. Why? Because what you know that you are the only one who is going to be sitting with your results when you're older. Maybe you'll have company with other people who will say, yeah, me too, man. Do you want that? You know, right now you can do something to change it. And so that's why we have to do that. So to your point, that's why we cannot perform for an algorithm. We cannot dumb this down into 12 or 10 minutes because those videos perform better. We cannot title things in a way that is going to be misleading somehow, or we can't do it. We know other
Man,
people are out there doing it, but we can't do it. We're gonna try to do better so we can help more people. But I promise you, when people have come try to help us and they say, you need to stop doing videos on velocity banking, or you need to stop doing videos on this because this is what you guys need to do. And it's like, you don't get it. You don't understand what we've accomplished. You don't understand why we've accomplished it. And what you're saying is that we should somehow change what we're teaching and the strategies and the ways that we're teaching for YouTube. You know what? Whoever finds us is looking for solutions, and those people deserve all of this information and more, and they deserve it for free. We're not charging for a course. We have nothing else to sell. It is because we know we want to be the change that we wish to see. And there should be more people out there like that and more people rewarded. However, these are the interwebs and this is how it goes. So share it with somebody so that they can find it. How about
I
that?
can't wait to listen to this again because man, she be on my head for these 12 and 15-minute videos. I'm telling you.
Oh, I still will be
I
trying.
know.
Yeah,
Like,
you got to
golly, you
try.
said all of this.
And you know why? It's because we see so many people who are out here covering this information, but sometimes they start stepping into a lane where that ain't their lane, and they probably never even have any experience with these particular vehicles.
But it got
Dr.
1.5 million views on it though.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so somebody goes, wow, this person must be an authority on this particular topic. And I think at the core, everybody's out here trying to help everybody. But that doesn't mean that some of this isn't just to be able to make money, and that some people are talking about things that they don't understand how they might be hurting somebody. We can only take people as far as we've come. And we only talk about the experience that we have here.
actually going.
So we feel like that's enough. We feel like it's enough to help people to where we are. If that's our lane, if that's our stretch of the race, is we cheer for people to where we are, and then we say, hey, but when you catch up with us, let's go together. Like, that's a dope thing. I don't feel like we should have to, get insanely rich before we come back to help people. I think that's dumb. That's selfish. And we need more people to just get to this point, or half of where we got to. It's still pretty good.
Let's give away a boat.
Okay. So, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So on that note, this is why we give away a boat. This is why we have our new vision board mini starter kit. We didn't have a better name, so that's what we named it. And the reason why we do this is because we started our journey with deciding where we were going to go, right? This is what we have in our vision. This is what we want to be able to achieve. And so now we have to somehow map it out, reverse engineer back to where we are. But we have to know that our decisions and our mindset and our choices, our agreements that we're forming with each other, most importantly, the agreements that we were forming with ourselves, right? That part is the most influential piece of all of this. It started with Donnell's ugly vision board. And I like to say this because I was so bougie in judging his board. I was just like, okay, if that's what you want to do, but we have all of this stuff. And I've been looking at tons of Pinterest boards. Your vision board could be looking nice if you want to use all the craft supplies. He did not. He just threw what his intentions were on a board. Like, isn't the point just to put it on the board? And I was like, kind of, but you could use the stickers. He threw some stickers on there. Like, is this the point? The point is we ended up getting everything achieved on his board because his board was visible and his board got the most attention. So naturally I was even probably especially because of how it looked, I was looking at his board every day too. So was he, right? It doesn't matter what this looks like. It doesn't. It's just a tool. It's a tool to keep it in focus all the time, to ask yourself, am I moving towards this? Remind yourself on bad days that, you know what? Yep, it is worth it because I deserve that and I want it. For some of us, it just means hitting the bar, right? Starting with hitting the bar. I have financial freedom. I have enough income that if I were to be fired, if something were to go wrong with my health, if I couldn't trade my time for money anymore, that I would be okay. For some of us, it's just that financial piece part. But all of it comes down to the choices that we're making every day. And so we have found a very inspiring story of this Olympic rowing team and their journey to the gold. Here it is. In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could or would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over. Okay. We got them coming in. Just make sure. Oh, is this from before? Because I didn't see Bonita in here. Is she in here? Okay, let's spin. Let's see. Oh, there's Thomas. Okay, so I know it's new people. And I gotta slow down because we're running out of supplies and our supplier ran out too. So only can send one today.
What I love about that is no one is making you spend more than twice.
Giving too many away. They're like, girl, slow down. Giving everybody vision. Too much. Thomas, go to, there it is, selfdirected.info/live. Get in there. Tell us where to send it. God, I want to send everybody one. Should we do one more? Okay, one more and then I'll slow down next week. Okay, guys? Slow down next week.
You are hilarious.
Well, I love giving these away, especially because I know how people are using them and I get to hear the stories and how they use them too. Only one missed. Well, welcome to our channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, only one missed. So go to selfdirected.info/live or /winner. It's a faster way to get there. And then tell us where to send them. And we'll be there. That's where we'll be. We'll send it, we'll put it in the mail to you. We would love the feedback on these too, by the way, guys. These are a new thing for us, and so we want to know, like, is it cool? Is it cool to open? Do you like what's inside? Is there anything that's missing inside? We try to do some things of the concepts and strategies that we teach here so that it would kind of like visually trigger you into remembering, like, like an anchor thought, like, okay, I remember that concept was about leverage. I remember that concept was about habits, right? I remember that concept was like the right you, the right vehicle, the right knowledge, those types of things. If you've been here for a while, then you'll know all of those. And maybe if you haven't been and you're kind of new to the channel, this would be almost like an Easter egg hunt, right? To go find which videos or which live streams these concepts came out of, because they're powerful. They're in here for a reason. They've been super powerful for us. We know that other people who have been here for a while, when they opened up this kit, they were like, wow. It's like everything came in to one place, coming together. And so that was really cool to get that feedback for sure. Crafts by you. Did you get yours yet? I meant to check up with you on that, but there's something. This is why we can't send too many, because I feel like we made the USPS mad, and now
you keep saying this we thing. You are the other one in this equation.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Okay. Well, you know what? It's a situation between me and USPS, because I think I sent too many. They had to hand sort them, and then now they're like, never gonna get it, never gonna get it. And that's why I have to call and ask, like, excuse me, did you get it? Did you? because we've got haters gonna hate. Okay, that's just what it is. Okay, well, anywho, I don't know that we have any more comments any more questions, but you guys are killing me here in the comments. We love to go. We usually eat after our live streams, and we sit and watch and go through the chat afterwards so we can see what you guys are saying. We love some of the sentiments that you leave in there, and some of the comments during a topic. It also helps us to understand what's hitting, what's not. Even if you don't ask a question, just to be able to give us that feedback in real time, we really appreciate that too. So this week we're going to go help Sacramento, right? Sacramento get self-directed, and then we'll be back here on Wednesday for the kind of the part 2 of this to really talk about why do people not get started? What was really preventing them from taking action, which is really important to kind of peel the layers back on so you can identify, is there something in here that could help me, liberate me in my journey? Anything else you want to add?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, well, we'd like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
so stay tuned,
Stay protected
stay focused.
and stay connected.
I'm Angelique,
And I'm Donnell.
and our goal is to help you.
Get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources, and we're adding more all the time. Don't forget to check out our conversation cards of getting your spouse on board. We have those now too, which is a really cool thing. So don't sleep on those. We appreciate everybody who's spending their time here with us. We know that time is the most valuable asset that we have, and your spending here with us means a lot. So we will see you back here on Wednesday. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get self-directed.
Self-directed.